Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to History Lesson 150. Let's start with your President's Review. Okay, sing along.
Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Adams, Jackson, Murray, Harrison, Tyler, Polk, and Taylor, Fillmore, Pierce, Buchanan, Lincoln, Johnson, Grant, and Hayes, Garfield, Arthur, Cleveland, Harrison, Cleveland, McKinley, Roosevelt, Taft, Wilson, Harding, Coolidge, Hoover, Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan, Bush, and Clinton, George W. Bush, Obama,
and Trump. All right, guys, let's do a quick review. Remember who Kaiser Wilhelm II is? Good. He's the leader of Germany during World War I. Do you remember who Hirohito and Tojo were? They were in Japan. One was the emperor and one was the military leader. Very good. And Mussolini, what country was he the leader of during the wars? Good. In Italy, he was a fascist dictator. And Adolf Hitler, cruel and unusual man from Germany. Very good, the dictator. And FDR, or F.D. Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Good, United States president during World War II. And how about Churchill? Winston Churchill. Do you remember him? Awesome. He's the leader in Great Britain. All right. So who was the first president of the United States to give the inaugural address over the radio? Do you remember? Awesome. President Coolidge. What is a hard time in America where many people did not have jobs and even banks closed? We call that time period the Great Depression. Very good. And before the Great Depression, when things were invented like the toasters and things like that, we call those times the Roaring 20s. Very good. Those were 1920s, and things were booming. Everything was being, there were a lot of things being invented at that time. And what was the name of the invasion of the, what was the country that was invaded to start the World War II? This country we talked about yesterday was Poland. Very good. All right, today we're going to talk a little bit about the United States. At this point, they were not involved in the war. They had not actually began fighting. They were making supplies and things like that, but they were not fighting. And remember that the United States had a very big military at the time. So the U.S. entered the war ready to fight. Okay. They were ready. They weren't tired like the other countries. Think about Germany and Italy and even Japan. They'd been fighting for such a long time, and they were tired. Okay. After a while, the troops get tired, and it usually gets worse after a while. But the United States, they were not tired. They had just entered. And the US first, they went to Africa. Remember, in Ethiopia is where they were fighting first. And this caused, so they decided that they would go to Ethiopia. They took over, everything was good. Then they went to Italy, and then Italy backed out of the war. Okay. They gave up, basically. And then the United States went over to Europe. We began to fight in Germany with the Germans. The Germans were very strong, but again, they were tired from many, many years of fighting. And we beat them back. The Germans in Europe basically gave up also. And that's the day that we say is V-Day, when we finally beat the Germans. We call that V-Day, and that stands for Victory in Europe Day. The Germans said that they were done. They gave up. That was called V-Day. Well, now we had one more country. Do you remember? Japan. Okay. They were not ready to give up. Yes, they were, tired as well. They had been fighting for a while, but they had these things, not things, but they had people in their military that were pilots, and they were willing to do things that that not everybody was willing to do. They were willing to take their planes and just drive them into other planes and kill the other planes. But remember what happens when you drive your, like run into the wall. You hurt yourself as well as the wall, right? And so they were willing to do that. And they had these pilots, and they called them kamikazes. They're willing to die for their country. So the U.S. had a decision to make. They needed a way to beat the Japanese and these pilots. And so they had this thing called the atomic bomb. The atomic bomb would not only blow up something, right? Not only someone, a group of people, but everything around it, the whole city. And they finally made the decision to drop this bomb, and they dropped it on over a city in Japan called Hiroshima. And then no more Hiroshima. No, I mean, nothing in the city was still there. It was gone. Even so, the Japanese people, they didn't give up fighting. They still continued. So the US decided the next day they were going to drop another atomic bomb. And they dropped this bomb on a place called Nagasaki. Again, a city, the whole city obliterated. No more. And it was at that point that the Japanese realized that they should give up, and the war was now over. Okay. However, even though the war was over, the US troops decided to go back into places in Europe. And what they discovered was really, really sad. They discovered that Hitler, if you remember Adolf Hitler from Germany, had developed these camps called concentration camps. And if you remember, we said that he was a cruel leader. He did not like the Jewish people. He did not, he didn't believe in God. And these camps that he made were made to torture and kill people, specifically the Jews. And after the war was over, when the U.S. soldiers found these camps, there were so many people in the camps that were killed. They even tortured people. They gassed them. They put them in these gas chambers. It was so awful. So many people died. You'll read a little bit about it, but when the U.S. soldiers went in to save the people that were still alive, even those people who were still alive were skinny from years of not eating and sick, and sometimes it's what makes me think about about the Bible, and that when people aren't Christians, they can do cruel and unusual things, and even makes me think that they don't know right from wrong. So let's go ahead and read those pages and find out a little bit more. But we'll pray for people not to do those things anymore, and for people to learn from the mistakes of Adolf Hitler and all those people in the Nazi party that went along with this. So at this time, I'm going to go over the chart that we've been working on. Let's go ahead and talk about allies. Which countries were allies? Do you remember? Good. The United States, Great Britain, and which were the Axis powers? Do you remember? Good. Japan, and how about Germany? Yes, remember Germany was both. Italy was an Axis power. Russia, and again, I'm sorry, Russia was both. They turned from Axis to allies. Who was the leader? Who was Hitler the leader of? I'm sorry, which country? Germany. And do you remember who was the leader of Italy? Good. And what about Stalin? Who was he the leader of? Good. Russia. And how about Hirohito and Tojo? Japan. Excellent. Do you remember who FDR was? Awesome. US. And the Great Britain. Do you remember his name? I know it's covered by my picture. Who was the leader in Great Britain? Excellent. Churchill. Good. And we're going to leave the rest one for now. You are going to go over, You're going to do the comp check on 17E on page 218 after you have read your pages 217 and 218. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you back for lesson 151 tomorrow. Have a great day.